Hi, I'm personal trainer Yuji.
As you reach your 50s, back training becomes incredibly important. This is because everyone gradually succumbs to gravity, and if you don't properly strengthen the back muscles, you might end up with a posture like this, which looks unattractive. Therefore, by effectively training the back muscles, I want to avoid ending up like that, correct my posture, and create an even more attractive back. Ideally, I want a back that can be described as beautiful, even in middle age. I want to emphasize that back training should be given as much attention as, or even more than, pectoralis major training, and I hope you take the time to do it properly. However, back training is a bit difficult. Honestly, it's challenging with the pectoralis major as well. The reason it's difficult is that there are many types of exercises. There are numerous back exercises because there are many muscles in the back. Just looking at the back muscles, you can see the latissimus dorsi, erector spinae, and others. There are various aspects to being ambidextrous. If you think you can manage all these muscles with just one exercise, that's impossible. No matter how you look at it, trying to develop all of these with a single muscle is unfeasible. There are many muscles involved and the range is quite broad. The back is extensive, and to transform it into a beautiful and impressive back, I believe that 3 types of exercises are necessary to achieve the ideal form. So, what are these 3 types of exercises? So, when we break it down, we can categorize them into 3 main types: vertical, horizontal, and rising. The vertical category primarily includes exercises like the lat pull-down and pull-ups. These exercises come in vertically against the body, and we pull in this manner. This is how we engage in vertical movements. Now, as for the horizontal category, in relation to the body, this direction is at a 90-degree angle, essentially coming in from the side at a right angle. For example, when performing a bent-over row using a bar, this rowing movement, whether with a barbell or a one-handed row, comes in at a 90-degree angle to the body. There are also rowing machines that operate in this same horizontal direction relative to the body. This is what is meant by horizontal. As for the rising motion, it fundamentally refers to the deadlift. When performing exercises, we focus on rising up, which engages the erector spinae, specifically the vertical aspect. Essentially, these exercises can be categorized into 3 types. When you think about back training, it's common to consider it as just one thing. But as mentioned earlier, a single exercise won't fully develop the back. For instance, the vertical and horizontal exercises each serve different roles, targeting different muscles and employing different techniques. Well, this is about the difference between vertical and horizontal. It comes in like this and that. There are subtle differences in how they are used, but when considering just the latissimus dorsi, it's still the same muscle. When you say you're pulling from above like this, you can also engage it from here, closing and extending. They say to close and extend, but honestly, extending is quite achievable. However, when it comes to closing, to be frank, it's somewhat limited. By somewhat limited, I mean this is about as far as it goes. So how far can we actually go? The arms come into play, so the back is quite tight. However, the contraction of the back is only to this extent, so it's not that much of a difference. To be honest, considering the full contraction of the back muscles, it feels like they contract about halfway and stretch well, especially in vertical movements. On the other hand, in horizontal movements like rowing, the contraction is quite significant. The back contracts as the arms get closer to the body, but the extension is limited, only about halfway, similar to the earlier lat pull-down. Since it is stretched, compared to this, it can be said that it stretches to this extent. Therefore, this one doesn't stretch much, but it contracts significantly. Even within the same latissimus dorsi, there are these differences. Thus, the vertical and horizontal aspects complement each other. It is better to use them this way. Therefore, even if you focus on the same latissimus dorsi, you should primarily perform the lat pull-down to stretch it out. Then, you will do the rowing exercises to focus on contraction. By doing both, the muscles will contract. You can do both. Then, by using both, you are training those areas. This way, your back gets closer to its ideal form. Just doing lat pull-down alone won't create a well-defined contraction. Therefore, these two need to be combined and considered as a set. In the current movements, the erector spinae isn't being trained much in the vertical or horizontal movements. The erector spinae supports the body in this bent-over position. However, that doesn't mean that the erector spinae will develop on its own. Therefore, by doing deadlifts, you will engage the erector spinae more. This way, unlike the latissimus dorsi and other outer muscles, you will be using the vertical erector spinae. By covering all these areas, your back will become attractive and beautiful. That's why these 3 types of exercises are necessary. With this approach of standing, horizontal, and rising exercises, it is essential to first think about the program. So, well, that's how the 3 come into play. There are various types of exercises, so what should beginners prioritize? I would like to think about the order of exercises starting from here. When beginners start training their back, there is a specific order to learn. The first exercise I want beginners to do for back training is the dumbbell bent over row. Among the horizontal exercises, the dumbbell bent over row is particularly important. This is the bent over row with dumbbells. The purpose of this exercise is primarily to move the shoulder blades. It involves bringing the shoulder blades together and then opening them. At this point, I'm not really considering the latissimus dorsi or the pectoralis major. The key is whether the shoulder blades can move properly, especially since in your 50s, the biggest issue is that the shoulder blades just don't move. Even if you try to close them, they often remain quite restricted, so the question is, can these shoulder blades close and move? If you don't master this, no other back training will work at all. Skipping this, even doing barbell rows, balls, or lat pull-downs won't contribute to health or movement. It ends up like this, using only the sides and not engaging the latissimus dorsi at all. If health decreases, you must first learn to properly contract the scapula, so you need to perfectly master the dumbbell bent over row first, focusing on bringing the scapula together. Once you can properly perform the bent over row with dumbbells, the next step is to basically use the barbell for the bent over row. Some people may have a barbell, while others may not. If you're at the gym, you can use an EZ bar, but I think you can do this at home with similar equipment. Using a barbell allows you to fix your hands at a slightly wider grip, compared to using dumbbells. So, with the dumbbell we talked about earlier, when doing it vertically, it only targets the inner part of the shoulder blades. However, if you widen your grip and perform it this way, you can engage the latissimus dorsi and teres major muscles effectively. Secondly, this order makes it easier to understand back training. After understanding how to contract the latissimus dorsi with the bent over row, you can then move on to the vertical movements like the lat pull-down and pull-ups. This is generally how it goes. When you go to the gym, you suddenly start with the lat program, but honestly, it's confusing. You don't understand the movements of the back at all, and before you know it, a year, 2 years, 3 years pass by. That's a waste. So first, you should focus on the movement of the shoulder blades. Then, as you extend that, you can start doing the bent over row with a barbell, which helps you understand how to use your back. After that, you need to work on vertical movements. It's really difficult because while pulling vertically, you also have to open your chest to the sides. You need to do both. If you only think about pulling vertically, then exercises like the lat pull-down can end up resembling pull-ups. That would result in a significant loss of time, wouldn't it? Following the current order, having the lat pull-down as the third exercise, the vertical movement makes it easier to understand how to use the back. By the way, regarding the current lat pull-down, for those going to the gym, it's better to do it. However, there are people who just keep doing lat pull-downs, but for men, it's definitely better to include pull-ups if they don't want to just stick to lat pull-downs. If you only stick to lighter weights, your muscle strength won't improve much. Since you keep using weights that you can handle, your strength doesn't increase significantly and progress can be slow. Although it may be tough at first, incorporating pull-ups will significantly enhance the strength of your latissimus dorsi. Therefore, men should definitely include pull-ups at this stage. This will help in developing strength rather than just maintaining the status quo. And as I mentioned earlier, it's important to include vertical, horizontal, and rising exercises. By properly incorporating these 3 types of exercises, your back will become attractive and beautiful. The goal is to aim for that ideal form, and ultimately, I want you to do these 3 types of exercises. Now, what is the best order to perform these 3 types? This can be quite confusing. It depends on your goals. First, if you are focusing on the latissimus dorsi to effectively build its width. As I mentioned earlier, if you can perform all 3 types correctly to some extent, then during the day, you should first do the vertical exercises, starting with the lat pull-down and then move on to the horizontal exercises. Finally, we perform the deadlift and engage the erector spinae. Initially, we focus on stretching the latissimus dorsi vertically, and then, in this position, we push down, further engaging the latissimus dorsi that we used earlier. Even when doing the deadlift, as you lift, you are still using the latissimus dorsi. This means that while you are still engaging the latissimus dorsi, it is important to first focus on effectively using the vertical movements. While using other muscles like the inner muscles and lower back, the focus becomes more on pushing the latissimus dorsi further. This is done in a sequence of vertical and horizontal exercises, including deadlifts. Another goal is to emphasize the inner details. Personally, I am currently doing this, and over the years, I have felt that the expansion of my back has reached a satisfactory level. And I realized this at some point. The inner part, or rather the individual texture of each area. Well, there wasn't much detail, so I thought it looked a bit flat and not very cool. So, for the past 2 or 3 years, I have been focusing on this inner aspect and detail, and in that case, first I do the lateral exercises, like the bent over row. Once that is done, I move on to the deadlift. The reason I do the deadlift after the lateral exercises is that I further utilize what I worked on laterally in the deadlift. In this way, it becomes a matter of pushing the inner parts and the contracted areas used on the side even further. Finally, we will focus on the vertical exercises. So, at the beginning, it is important to thoroughly work on the inner parts and then push that further. For those who are advanced, the vertical exercises feel like the last step. Another goal is for those who cannot arch their back and lower back. So, for those who cannot arch, here is an example. Even if you want to work on your back or do a bent over row, if you can achieve the right position, you can effectively engage the back muscles. However, if you can't extend your back and are doing the bent over row in a certain way, it won't engage the latissimus dorsi at all, and you'll only be using the very edge of the side muscles. It feels like you're only using the rear part of the shoulder's latissimus dorsi and deltoid. Because of this extension, the shoulder blades can move, allowing the latissimus dorsi to be engaged. For those who cannot create this extension, the primary goal should be to achieve that extension. In that case, the deadlift is the best option. After that, it doesn't matter whether you do vertical or horizontal exercises. You can do vertical first and then horizontal, or horizontal first and then vertical. Either way is fine. The key is to start with the deadlift. To create a beautiful and attractive back, it's best to do those 3 types of exercises, but you can change the order based on your goals. Additionally, I want you to be careful not to make mistakes in the order of learning these exercises. The back is honestly quite complex. It's fine, but you need to think about what is necessary and the order in which to acquire those skills. Now consider what you need and adjust that order accordingly. It might be a bit difficult. Did you understand? With that in mind, please review the structure of your back training. Let's do our best.
Please subscribe the channel and follow my Instagram and X. I hope to see you next time. ありがとうございます。